What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with other factors involving the markets for tomorrow, and something very, very big involving the shareholder vote for Tesla and Elon Musk. But before I break things up, information, before I get into any more details for Tesla stock, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them, and offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, for Tesla, I just want to call out that right now I am not convinced that Tesla is running very hard or dropping very hard. We are completely in the middle because Tesla is completely range bound, and whether or not this makes a big move depends on the levels we break and also what we see going into tomorrow. So I'm going to break down more information about this. I'm going to talk about the charts for Tesla SPY and the others a little bit later into this video. I first want to talk about some very important data involving our economy for tomorrow. So the market's going to have a big reaction tomorrow to some very, very important data. Tomorrow is going to be Friday, June 7th, 2024. This is very important because 1 hour before the market opens, we have the unemployment rate coming out, non-farm payrolls, not to mention manufacturing and governmental payrolls as well. This data is going to be very, very key for how we end up moving, but just know that the unemployment rate is one of the most important sectors. Now, what's so important about this is the fact that this will give us more insights about the strength of the economy and how the labor force is looking. Because right now the Fed is anticipating a softening, and it's going to have an effect on their next rate cut slash hike slash decision, right? Whatever that they choose to do. Right now, there's a 97% chance the Fed is going to keep rates the same. And I believe that's what they're going to end up doing again because the Fed still needs more time and more data to go over before anything else. Now, I have friends who are anticipating that the Fed may do one emergency cut right before the election. It's a possibility. I can't promise you that, but there's still plenty of time left until then. That's the reason why I think the Fed is still giving it as much time as they need. So next week is when we have FOMC. I can't wait to see what Jerome Powell and others have to say. But that's going to have a big effect on the markets, and that's the reason why you must be paying very close attention to all this unemployment data. I'll talk more about this tomorrow once all the data comes out. One more thing, at noon, we have Cook from the Fed giving a speech, but that's going to be very insignificant relative to the first piece of data. So 1 hour before market open, get ready for huge data. It's going to have a big effect on the markets, and unemployment data and the payrolls will give us more and more important insights. Now, moving forward, I just want to call out that right now, the market is quite neutral, getting very close to fear. That's despite the fact that the market still is holding up very well. But that's because of the fact that greed is still imminent. We're still seeing greed making up the majority of sentiment. But given the way that the market's been moving and how quickly it really popped, I don't think that the fear and greed index gauge is really keeping up. But despite that, momentum is still greedy. We're still in a buy the dip market, technically speaking. You also have to look at the fact that the puts and call option positioning is currently right over here around this 0.75% area. And the reason why this is very important is because this tells us that right now we're still seeing people being greedy. We're still seeing buyers present. They're not necessarily gone. So even if the market does get a decline, I would anticipate that they're going to be buying the market back up later on. And I'll give you guys more insights about that a little bit later. Then the VIX is also continuing to fall, rejecting off the 50 daily moving average. We have a gap to fill below, but as of right now, the VIX is quite neutral. For SPY for tomorrow, we have close to about 190,000, or I'm sorry, 290,000 of the calls expiring, and we have over 557,000 of these puts expiring. So that's going to be very important. We have a 1.92 puts to call ratio with max pain being 529. The question is, will the market see a decline to max pain? Or will the market kind of dip a bit, then bounce and continue to squeeze at the end of the day? I find those to be the two most likely possibilities for price action. As far as Tesla goes, I want to talk about something very important real quick. So, there's been a lot of talk about the next shareholder vote, and that's going to be happening once again in about a week from now. Now, there's been a lot of talk from many of Tesla's most important share members that Elon Musk could leave the company if the $56 billion pay package is not approved by shareholders. And that's something that's very important. My question is, should we even risk it? And I personally think that it's not really worth the risk. And the reason I say that is because of something else that another one of the important shares said. So Robin Denholm, he basically said something very important. If Tesla shareholders vote against the compensation package for Musk, it's currently valued between 46 and $56 billion, depending on factors. Then they would have to come up with a new package that could carry an accounting charge of more than $25 billion, but the range is between 22.7 to 25 plus billion dollars. My question is, Is it worth it? That's going to be 10 times more than the $2.3 billion charge originally for the current package, which was approved back in 2018 before it ended up getting struck down by the Delaware courts. So think about it, okay? This is already done with. They have the package in place. It's already established. It's not easy to establish these for any CEO, and that's done with. The question is, will it get approved? It already was approved before, but now shareholders are voting again. If we vote no on this, there's a risk, firstly, that Elon Musk might leave Tesla. And secondly, they're going to, if he doesn't leave, he's going to want another pay package. And then they're going to, it's going to be very, very strenuous to try to come up with another one. It could cost another 22.7 to $25 billion. That's absolutely insane. Is it really worth it? I don't think so, guys. It seems like to me the most advantageous thing to do is vote yes on the pay deal, give Elon Musk an incentive to work harder, and then he's going to once again do a much more important job for Tesla. He's going to help build better teams, and that money will be reinvested into Tesla in a way, because then we're going to reap a lot of benefits, right? You pay Elon Musk now, give him the billions he wants, blah blah blah. This was already approved by the shareholders before. It's not like he's being greedy. This was already what was planned, and he ended up meeting a lot of terms of the agreement. So you give Musk this pay package, then as time goes on, okay, Tesla's going to explode, and the 50 billion, 60 billion, whatever it is, that's going to seem very insignificant relative to how much Tesla's valuation increases, in my personal opinion. I think that Tesla's valuation will more than, it's going to increase by hundreds of billions, if not trillions, over the years. And the amount of wealth that's going to be created is going to be astronomical. So I think that, the most advantageous thing would be to vote yes. I'm not going to force you to do that, because I want to say that I respect other people's beliefs and opinions, ideas. You have the right to believe whatever you want, and I'm not here to kind of like force you into anything. But I'm just saying that it's more advantageous to vote yes from what I'm seeing. Now, if you do whatever you want to do, I will respect your decision, whatever vote you make, and I want to make that very, very clear. Now, moving forward, volume is currently at about 70 million. That's a little bit below average, but not the worst in my personal opinion. And Tesla managed to see a little bit of a increase in volume as short volume is decreasing. Some buyers did step into Tesla as we're getting very close to some big levels. Now, GLJ Research is giving Tesla a sell rating, unfortunately. So it is what it is. They've maintained that for quite some time. The price risk ratio is flat as Tesla's not really making much of a move. It's just range bound. That's the reason why. Fridays tend to be green only about 49% of the time. And we tend to see more volatility at 10 a.m., around noon, and also at about 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, guys, June tends to be a very strong month for Tesla. So, what if the shareholders approve the package and something big happens after this whole deal? I think Tesla stock could still explode, and there is still potential in Tesla, as historically, June is a very, very strong month. So, I think we are going to break out of the range we're in Tesla eventually. It's just a matter of time. We just have to wait and see when that ends up happening. All right. So with that being said, that's it for all the data I want to go over. Now let's just focus solely on the charts. What do I think is going to happen? So just to make it very, very clear, right now Tesla did see a nice little bounce, but despite it bouncing off 173, going up to 178, almost like 180, and coming back down, Tesla is still range bound, unfortunately. If we lose 173 and we close below that, there's going to be a risk of it coming all the way down to the low 170s, if not 168s, to fill the gap. If we're bullish and you want to see it break past 180 and close above that, we'll be pushing all the way up towards 182, 185, and eventually much higher levels. Now, whether Tesla gets a drop or not depends on different factors, of course, but just know this. We have an inverse head and shoulders developing. We have a left shoulder here. We have a head here, and then we have a right shoulder. And there's going to likely be a big pump coming into the 200s later on, in my personal opinion. I think that's very probable, and there's a very good chance of that happening, even if we do get a little drop, as long as we don't lose like around 167. So with that being said, there is a good chance Tesla may see a big squeeze later on during the month, but we need to break some key levels for confirmation. What is Tesla doing? We're just range bound. It's very boring, but technicals do look a little bit more bullish going into tomorrow, especially when you look at Tesla on the daily time frame. So yes, we have unemployment numbers coming out for tomorrow. We'll see how this affects Tesla. There is a chance it might try to pop a little higher towards the 80 area, maybe go a little higher, then come back down, and it's most likely going to just remain range bound for now. And then we'll see what happens going into next week with the shareholder votes coming out. All right, so that's what I'm seeing for Tesla. Look for a little pop and drop tomorrow and lots of sideways range bound price action. But then we could be looking for a big move depending on where we close, and also starting next week as we get closer to the shareholder meeting. For SPY's technicals are very, very simple. So basically we're range bound for the most part today again, and we have resistance currently at 535. It's very tough, and we have support all the way down to 534. If we break 535 after the data comes out, we'll be looking for 536. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 533.9 to 534 area, this 20 EMA. I'll be watching 532.5 and 531.5 as support if that ends up happening. Technically speaking, we have a bearish divergence on SPY as well right over here on the 4 hour, and then simultaneously we have this trend line of support which aligns around 531 to 532. So excuse me, if SPY were to retest this in order for it to go higher, there is a chance that SPY could attempt to touch this trend line before anything else, before it tries to continue to go higher. So if I were to give you my prediction, guys, don't uh, take this with a grain of salt. Don't take this way too seriously. I want to say this because I don't truly know what's going to happen with the data for tomorrow. But if I were to tell you guys the most likely possibility, I would say that SPY will likely kind of shuffle a bit, and we could see a little decline to test this trend line going into tomorrow before we try to bounce back up, or we could close like a little bit lower, closer to max pain, and then bounce next week. So it does look to me like SPY will likely drop and then bounce as the most likely possibilities, unless we end up closing below 531.5. Then I'll change my view. But look for a dip and a bounce is the most likely possibility. The bounce could either come at the end of the day tomorrow or maybe as soon as next week. So there's going to likely be a dip coming, so get ready for that, and we'll see how things progress moving forward. But that's the most likely possibility looking at these different factors. For Nvidia, we're trading sideways within a range. We have resistance currently at 1206. We have support at basically 1190. We're kind of stuck in between. I do want to call out that Nvidia has a risk of dipping, which could slow the market down because on the daily time frame, I noticed that it's been pushing with all the AI hype and all the AI chip news, especially as they have their new GPUs coming out. But the issue is we have this gap to fill all the way down here at 1165. That's an issue, at least for bulls. So we could temporarily see a dip only to bounce after that. So I think that there is a risk of downside on Nvidia, in my personal opinion. But we have to watch for confirmation just to be safe if we lose support. If we lose 1180, we're going to likely fill the gap down to 1165. Then we could bounce after that. If we break past 1225, we're going to be likely pushing back up to 1250. I don't really favor that. I think it's more likely we dip first before we try to bounce, but just to be safe, we'll watch and see. For the QQQ, we have resistance at 465. We also have support all the way down here around 460. Now, when you look at the 4 hour time frame, I see something very interesting on the triple Q. Uh, Check out this imbalance over here around this 461 area. This might be revisited, and it also correlates with this previous resistance becoming support right over here. So if we do end up losing and we end up declining towards like 463, if we end up losing that, I think we might actually touch this previous resistance becoming support in the 461s before we try to bounce again as the most likely possibility. So I think tomorrow the QQQ may pop a bit and end up dropping down to previous resistance becoming support, then try to bounce again as the most likely possibility. But if we end up breaking past 465, then 466 is on the table. If we lose 462.5, we're going to likely see the more bearish case. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I just want to make it very clear that there is a risk of that, in my personal opinion. For Aapl basically has support right over here at our 20 EMA, this 194 area. But when I pull up the daily time frame, kind of hide our indicators, you will see that there's also this gap support. There's a gap to fall all the way down here to 192. So I think we could dip all the way down to about the 193s. If we lose that, we could fill this gap and then try to bounce. We have resistance also at 195. If we break this, we'll push higher. My gut is telling me that we might see this actually decline a bit looking at this bearish looking candlestick all the way down to 193.5. But then Apple will bounce later and continue to pump as the overall trend is still bullish on the chart. All right, so look for a little dip on Apple before we try to bounce later. That's the most likely possibility. For Nio, unfortunately, something very, very interesting happened. So we did not end up getting a bounce off earnings. Earnings were actually a little bit bad for the previous quarter, right? That's Q1. We're actually in Q2. We're actually well into it. And what I want to say is that, yes, it declined because of previous data, because of old news, that revenue is not very good. But what's good about it is they have very, very strong looking numbers for Q2. So that could actually cause a bounce if we get some strong numbers. They just broke their all-time high delivery record in a week, just last week, and they also have more good data coming out, in my opinion. So I'm anticipating a good Q2, but I think that for the short term we are declining a bit. If we lose 4.7, we could actually start dropping all the way down to fill the gap in the 4.2 area, then bounce. And if we hold 4.7, then we could bounce again from there, and then we have an inverse head and shoulders. So we'll just have to see what ends up holding up. For Bitcoin on the 4 hour time frame has like a double top leg structure. If we end up declining, we'll be watching for more detail. If we lose 70,500, we're going to be dipping all the way down to about 70,000. If we hold this support, we're going to be rebounding. Overall, this is forming like a cup, but we'll have to watch and see how well we hold up. There's a chance Bitcoin could dip just a bit, retest 69,500 before it tries to bounce. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. For other factors, I just want to call out that let me just double check some stuff. For more tickers, I'm going to go over the rest of them in just a minute. But I just want to say that as far as the market goes, do not forget that it's going to be very data driven, so be prepared for that. Now, guys, I'm going to do a speed run for the rest of the tickers because I'm running out of time. We have a double bottom leg structure for Palantir. We're going to likely push higher. Technicals do favor 24.5 plus. If we lose 23.5, we're going to be dipping lower, but this does favor upside. For Supermicro, we have a nice looking structure right over here. It does look a little bit more bearish, though, as this kind of resembles the head and shoulders. If we break and hold 800, we're bullish. If we reject here and start dipping, we're going to be dipping all the way down to about the 750 area. So I do favor a drop is a more likely possibility. For Rivian, we're looking more bullish overall with an inverse head and shoulders. I think we're going to be pushing to the 12s very soon, quite easily. It has more upside. We could dip first tomorrow to about 11.5, then bounce and push higher as the most likely possibility. But overall, technicals remain bullish. So if I was looking more bullish, I'm going to be looking for a test of 7.2. If we lose to 6.93, we could turn back to bearish. But I favor that might kind of dip a bit and start pushing for 7.2 very soon. The IWM Russell 2000 has a double bottom like structure. Looks pretty good to me. If we hold above 203, we're going to likely bounce back up to 205 plus. If we lose that, we're going to be dipping. So I do favor kind of like some sideways price action and a bounce as the most likely possibility. For AMD, we're kind of declining a bit as well. We're going to be looking at support at this 164 area. Looks a little bit weaker, at least from that end, but I think it could try to bounce after that. So I see a little decline coming, then a bounce is a strong possibility. That's what I see for AMD. ARM is continuing to pump. I think that we could be testing resistance very soon, all the way up here around the 140 area. But it does like to test its key resistance levels first beforehand. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually dip a bit towards like 130 right here, 134 around that 134 area, then bounce after that. So watch for that. For Coinbase is once again trying to push higher, but just know that we're approaching this resistance around this 258 area. So if we reject off 258 to 260, we're going to be coming back down towards 250. And if we break past 260, we'll be running more. My gut tells me we might pop and then drop, and we'll see how things end up developing from there. For Amazon, we have 185 as resistance. If we continue to push, I believe we could be going all the way up to about 186.8 to 187. So I do favor upside a bit. The chart looks more bullish to me, so it does look like it's going to push higher. For Meta, we're at resistance. If we fail to hold 495, we're going to be looking for a dip all the way back down towards 491, if not 485. If we bounce off 491, we're going to be looking for a push. But overall, I do have a feeling that it might decline a little bit before it tries to bounce. But it depends if we can hold 495 or not. Microsoft looking more bullish. I see a test of 425. If we reject off this previous support becoming resistance, it's going to be dipping back down lower to 420. If we hold 425 and break above that, we'll be pushing all the way up towards 428. For Google, we're looking a little bit more bullish last time I checked it. No sign of it actually breaking down right here. We're at resistance at 178. If that breaks, look for 180. If it rejects here, we're going to be coming back down to 170, 176 around that area. But I favor upside is still looking more bullish. I want to give you guys a warning about AMC and GameStop, okay? I want to be very, very honest. Retail are being taken advantage of. They're being used for liquidity right now for someone else's intentions. I'll say that. Do I think we could pump more? Yes, you can make crazy money off this if you play it right. But always remember the very, very important disciplinary factors. You want to manage risks, take profits, be careful, and don't become overly bullish because these stocks love to pump and dump. So GameStop could be running to the 70s tomorrow. It could be fun to play. Could be fun to watch. It could even go higher than that, all the way up to 80 again. But be careful, guys, because once again, these stocks love to pump and dump, and there's nothing wrong with taking profits. AMC is going to be testing 7 plus tomorrow, most likely. And if that breaks, I could see 8.25, but we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. DJT is range bound. Look for a drop towards 44 tomorrow, but it's not going to be too bad. So I just see sideways price action. Not really much with that. The VIX is kind of dipping a bit. We have this gap to fill, so it's looking a little bit more bearish, but we'll see if we get a temporary bounce first off 12.5 and then continue to fall or not. That still looks kind of indecisive. The 10-year is going to be affected by the unemployment numbers. We'll see if we come down to fill this gap or not. That's going to be key alongside FOMC for tomorrow. Not tomorrow, sorry. For next week, we have FOMC, not tomorrow, guys. And then for the dollar index, we have a head and shoulders. We'll see what this leads to because the dollar is looking a bit more bearish. But like I said before, we're at support at 104. So anyways, to conclude the video, Tesla is still range bound. nothing has really changed. I expect a very big move probably after the shareholder meeting or approaching it next week. So a big move is coming very soon, and we'll see what the move ends up being. So be patient, guys. I think Tesla may remain range bound tomorrow, kind of pop and drop and trade sideways, but give it the time it needs, and we'll see something very, very beautiful, in my personal opinion. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow on the next one. I'll give you guys an update on what the data looks like, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and peace out.